We are the University of Bedfordshire, where groundbreakers take risks, where future leaders make their mark, where high flyers soar. Get the support and opportunities to achieve more, become more, defy expectations. Find out how a degree at Bedfordshire can change your life. Book now for our open day on November 21st at beds.ac.uk/defy.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host Paul Rook and we are exclusive to the Paranormal UK radio network. As always, we are joined by the stupendous Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements. Hello guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how have you been?
Yeah.
Have you had a busy week?
Very busy. I can't keep up at the moment.
Yeah, poor Kerry's been working away, I think, in the background there, but I've been pretty quiet. But
We are the University of Bedfordshire, where groundbreakers take risks, where future leaders make their mark, where high flyers soar. Get the support and opportunities to achieve more, become more, defy expectations. Find out how a degree at Bedfordshire can change your life. Book now for our open day on November 21st at beds.ac.uk/defy.
sort of dodging the showers, really. There's not a lot you can really do when the weather sort of changes, but hopefully it will settle into sort of normal winter weather, which usually about this time of the year, you have that flurry of showers at the start, and then it sort of settles down to just being generally miserable.
Lovely. That's a cheery thought, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah.
Absolutely, isn't it? Just this weekend coming. It's the weekend just before you had to have the clocks back, didn't you?
Nick, this weekend, yeah.
No. Yeah, the weekend just gone.
Oh yeah, because of course it is. Don't confuse me already, because somebody put they go forward this weekend.
No, it's spring forward
and fall back, isn't it? But that confused me completely, because I was thinking, am I wrong? I'm sure they go back this weekend. Honestly, I tell you, I'm all over the show. I ain't got a clue what I'm doing. Honestly.
You wait.
Oh no, he's definitely back.
And all I can say is thank God I'm not working Sunday, because I always have a major anxiety panic that I've got the time wrong.
Yeah.
Even though, like, your clocks all do it pretty much. The only one that doesn't is the oven, isn't it? Tends to be. But, like your phone and that, it automatically does it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. The phones and laptops and things all automatically go over. But
They were talking about stopping it, weren't they, this year?
Oh, they say that every year.
They say that all the time, but you can't argue with it, can you? Because it's like all to do with the whole planet going around the sun and stuff like that.
I thought it was so it gave the farmers more time in the war years or something like that.
Well, yeah, originally and during the war, they actually put them forward 2 hours during the summer. Yeah. Well, I was talking to my dad. Yeah. He said, back in the war.
Oh, well, but this time I'm going to put mine back to about 2005.
Yeah.
When was it a good year?
I don't think we've had any, maybe like 1987.
1984.
When I was in the Scouts, and I was going on Holland trips with the Scouts and things like that. So, that'd do. 87 I think I'll go back to. That'd do.
When life was simpler.
Yeah.
I think I was about 12 then.
Yeah, that must have been. I was a bit older than that. I was clubbing a lot of them years. Don't remember that 87 particularly well.
Oh, no. The only worry I had was about getting detention the day after.
I think there was a big hurricane in 87 in the UK.
Yes, I slept through that.
Yeah, same here.
I walked home in that anyway, we're getting off topic because we're actually coming up to a really big festival, aren't we, in the UK? Well, it's a big festival, not just in the UK, but in America as well.
Yeah, the Americans love it.
They certainly do.
I think they love Halloween as well as Christmas, and it's just one big festival, isn't it, really?
Yeah, they go start partying now and then just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. That's it.
Oh, it keeps the dark days. Although this year's going to be very, very different for people because the trick-or-treating thing is pretty much out, isn't it? What do you think about that? Should people be going trick-or-treating this year or not?
I can't see any sort of harm, particularly perhaps around the local area. I think people will know quite, perhaps they can leave all the treats on the doorstep or something, but you'll always get the greedy kid that will come and take the lot, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. That might not be a very good one. But to be fair, I mean, it's no different from having someone knock on your door, like the postman, for example, and that exchange of the letters. And only this time it's just sweets. I can't see it being a problem for like families and things. So, if you've got kids, you can go and do trick-or-treating with the grandparents or something. If they really feel the need that they want to do that. I know a lot of people these days have a big thing about it being begging, and they don't really like it. So not many people do partake in that sort of thing, but it's only a bit of fun. And with the kids, there's no harm in going to the grandparents or brothers and sisters, and you know what I mean? Just sticking with the family.
Yeah,
I know they're talking about, like we did the rainbows for the NHS. They're talking about doing like spot the pumpkin and then the parent giving the sweet to the child rather than the knocking on door things because of the COVID situation.
Well, that's another option, isn't it?
That's quite a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or like you say, leave them. I'm going to set a table out because I always carve my pumpkins every year. I like to do that. I normally have a big party. Well, I normally have a big party, and obviously I can't do that this year. But I'm going to do my pumpkins. I'm going to set my table up out the front with my pumpkins on it. I'm going to put sanitizer on the table as well. And then I'm going to let, if anybody does come around, because the worst thing I think would be, I don't do anything, and then I get people knocking on the door trick-or-treating. Yeah. I would hate that. But because it is for the little uns, isn't it? More than the big uns. It's for the little uns.
Yeah.
And how awful. It's, a lot has been taken away and they've lost out a lot this year. To lose out in that way too would be, I just don't like the idea of them losing out on something else.
Another thing that sort of bugs me a little bit is I think sometimes the Americans have got it a little bit wrong because the children are supposed to dress up as monsters, witches, vampires and things like that. But you're in America, I'm sure, to be honest, you'll get some over here as well, dressing up as Spider-Man. And little fairy princesses. And it's like, really, I think you haven't grasped the concept of Halloween.
Mate, you haven't grasped the concept of when a kid wants to dress up in that particular outfit, you're not going to be able to change their minds.
No, I remember when I was a kid, right, and I didn't have a Halloween costume, only thing we could do was just chuck a sheet over your head and cut 2 holes in it.
Ah, the traditional ghost.
Exactly. That's all the fun you really needed at that age. But no, it's gone a bit daft now.
It is another commercialised holiday these days, but it does have its roots way, way back. So tonight we're going to take a look at some of the traditions and the history surrounding Halloween.
I think you need to put your teeth in first.
Oh, well, that
put your vampire teeth in tonight.
Cuts my lip. That's the problem with them. They cut my lips.
Okay.
So, guys, when do we think that Halloween dated back to? How far back does this go, guys?
I'm gonna. I know that it's something to do with the Celts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean it certainly sounds like a Celtic.
So
festival.
Around that period, I don't, without like putting a pin in a date, I don't know, but lots and lots of years ago.
Lots and lots of years ago. It was around, roughly around 2,000 years ago. And they used to celebrate their new year on the 1st of November, which is why it's such a big thing on the 31st of October.
So they didn't have...
This is like New Year's Eve for the Celts.
They could have had the Christmas.
I don't think they had Christmas.
I don't think they had Christmas.
Well, yeah, technically they must have. The birth of Jesus was 19 years before. If it's going back 2000, so at least they would have had a 19th Christmas.
No, they celebrated
Yule,
80. Didn't they? Celebrated Yule.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it's also known as Samhain or Sam. A lot of people pronounce it Samhain, and it's not. It's Samhain. But we're going to stick to Halloween because because
we'll just use that as the generic term.
The generic term of Halloween, which we'll come to how we got to Halloween later on in the show. But it is one of those where everyone looks at it. It's because it's a Celt word. It doesn't. It's not phonetically said, so it's not Samhain.
Yeah, I
it's
think
Samhain.
People would have seen that and thought, you know what, that's rubbish. We just call it Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's so much easier to pronounce, and everyone knows that. Yeah.
It's the last harvest festival. We have 3, believe it or not, running up, and this is the last one. And this is another day where it is the marked time of the end of summer and harvest. So this is the Celts Harvest Festival, as it were, the last one, because we've had a run of 3, and this is the last one.
Okay. Didn't know that.
It's also very associated with death.
So, I mean, I know this year Halloween falls on a blue moon.
Mm.
And I don't know what that signifies. Is that something to do with the harvest festivals or anything?
No, a blue moon is just where you have 2 full moons in a month. So that could happen any time
so
of
it's
the
very
year.
rare. So it'd be very rare to have 2.
It's unusual to have 2 in October, and it's very unusual to have a full moon on Halloween. But that is only statistics. That's just nothing to do with it special or anything like that. It's just statistical. It's just
where I'm going with that one is the saying once in a blue moon.
Mm.
Yeah, that's right.
Very rarely comes around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But a blue moon can happen at any point in the year. So any month of the year could have 2 full moons, depending on the lunar cycle falls.
See, the only other one I know is the beaver moon.
Yeah, you love the beaver moon, don't you?
Yeah.
I've been outside of a beaver moon.
Jeepers. And I think people are making more of it this year because, it's a Saturday. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of this pandemic. If the pandemic hadn't have happened, it would have been a big thing because it's on a Saturday, which very rarely happens. And normally you've got, midweek, you've got things going on the next day. You can't have big parties and stuff like that because you're thinking, I've got to get up for work the next day. Whereas because it was falling on a Saturday, it was almost like, great, we can get the kids out trick-or-treating early evening, get back, it's, have a big party. You can make more of it because it's on a Saturday. The fact that it's a full moon is, extra spooky, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we know there's so many folklore mythologies surrounding the full moon in itself. You know what I mean? So it all makes it all a very big... Unfortunately, COVID has dampened that down a lot. Now, it's got a lot to answer for, this virus, hasn't it? Is all I'm saying. But if it hadn't have had the pandemic, this year would have been a big year, only because it's a full moon, it's a Saturday, which is great because it's a fantastic Halloween. It's brilliant. And it is the time where, going back to the Celts, they put a lot on human death. The mortality, looking at your own mortality comes in to this. You've got the turn of the season, so things are starting to die off. You've got your last knockings of getting your food stores in, basically, the last harvest festival. And the cold and dark and things dying off all around you, natural, because don't forget the Celts are very, very involved with nature. And so mortality comes into it. And then there's this, the veil thins between the realms. You know what I mean? At Halloween. And this all kind of goes back to the Celts.
Yes, it's actually quite interesting because the Celts, their priesthoods were actually the Druids, and I should imagine everyone sort of heard of them. I mean, not a lot's actually known about them, but it is believed that they were possibly sort of like a Northern European equivalent of shamanic sort of workers, and it was thought then that and as the veil was finished, the Druids could actually communicate with the people on the other side to sort of prophesize for the upcoming year or the next year. So this was always sort of hotly anticipated as well.
Don't forget, it's not just about spirits of your dead ones that have passed over, but it's those nature spirits as well, those little entities, like we call them fairies, elementals, lots of different names for them. But, it's that closeness at working with nature and having that relationship with nature. And a lot of traditions that we've brought forward actually do have their roots back in the Celts. And it's all about linking in and having that duality between your home and making sure that these little spirits don't get mischievous and, cause trouble and stuff like this. So, when you've got to put yourself in the mindset of it's not like they were very in tune with the seasons and nature and very, very closely related. And all these things reflects in their and I'm quoting, worship. You know what I mean? Because it's that they're worshipping, not necessarily an individual deity.
No, that's right. He's very sort of driven by the environment around and how that changes, yeah. And you can understand why they would think that way. And thinking about it, it's, if you were to wipe our minds of everything we sort of know about religion and stuff, and we sort of locked us up in a room or something, I mean, I'm thinking that is the sort of conclusion you would come to, surely, if you were to start all over again.
I don't know. Never really thought about it, to be fair.
It's one of my musings.
Yeah.
We love a muse.
Yes, we do. We do love a muse. Yeah. I'll go back to staring at me navel.
Bless. Oh, my God. No, but this, they would be very in tune with that. And through that, they would get omens, they would see omens and signs, and they would try to predict the future, you know what I mean, because it was so integral to them.
So it's like Red Sky in the Morning, Shepherd's Warning, all that.
Well, certainly this is where we do get a lot of it from, these old sort of tales and sort of sayings, which is generally, Red Sky in the Morning, was it Shepherd's Warning,
these Red Sky at night, the crops are alight.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
But
the Druids used to build huge sacred bonfires, didn't they? And it was like homage to the Celtic deities.
Well, this is what they would do on the eve of, on the 31st. They would, everyone in their homes would actually douse their fires, and they would have a ceremonial bonfire outside. And then at the end of the ceremonies, they would all take an ember from the sacred fire to relight all the fires in their homes. So you can actually see the connection there, sort of bringing it from.
Well, yeah, I mean that's also got a connection to Christmas as well with the Yule log. But that shall be closer to Christmas.
Yes.
So stay tuned for that one.
Yeah. Got a few of these kind of shows coming up, guys. Got a lot of festivals to cover. Now, don't forget also that the light is dying. So the sun is going lower on the horizon, and that homage to the sun that's given us all this, bounty. It's the sun and the summer and those seasons that have given us this massive bounty for us to store food through the dark days. Not a lot grows in the dark days, and they would see it as the dark days, like the cold, dark, wintry days. So when you're lighting a fire, it's a homage to that light. It's, a thanks. So it's also saying thank you to the sun. Thank you ever so much. Cheers. Don't go. Come back next year, please.
Yeah.
Don't go too far.
It's a good job they didn't live in the North Pole, isn't it? Like 6 months of light, 6 months of day.
I don't know how they do that. I don't know how people live like that.
No. Probably got the highest suicide rate ever.
Is it somewhere in Norway that's like that as well, that has a long time without any sun?
I think the closer you get to the North Pole, basically, I think that's where it has longer days and longer nights.
Yeah, so it's both hemispheres. So it'd be the same if you get close to the South Pole, the same with the North Pole. Yeah. Sort of if you get within the Arctic Circle, you can have literally sort of months of nighttime and months of sort of daytime where the sun doesn't drop below the horizon.
Perfect place for vampires, isn't it? The North and South Pole. They could go North Pole for 6 months and then travel down to the South Pole for the other 6 months. They'd just live constantly outside then.
Maybe they get a bit cold. Who knows? But anyway,
and there's no one to trick or treat with.
They used to also offer sacrifices. You've got to think about this in terms of a very, what would be classed as very heathen, very rural way of worship. So they would put costumes on like animal skins and stuff like that, and they would sacrifice animals to help appease the gods and thank the deities. And, they would burn... Now, when they say burn crops, they're not burning their crops, obviously. They're burning, like, the stuff that's left over from the crops that they don't use. So it's that sort of thing. But, yeah.
Isn't this where, like, the birth of, like, the Wicker Man thing comes in?
I'm not too sure. I think the Wicker Man's a bit of a myth, actually. Yeah. I mean, he only appears in literature from the 17th century onwards, when there was sort of a bit of a Druid revival, and I think they took the effigy of the Wicker Man and sort of twisted it a bit. There's no actual sort of evidence that they sort of burnt Wicker Men.
Maybe it was their equivalent of Guy Fawkes, like, the penny for the guy sort of thing.
It's an extension from the corn dollies. They would make in the last festival we've had, the corn dolly was very prevalent. They would spend time making corn dollies and stuff like that.
So it was the right era.
So maybe it goes into an extension from that. But I'm with Rich on this one. I think the Wicker Man himself is a bit of a fable. But I would have to look into it more to be definitive on that.
I've seen the pictures. Okay, they were moving posters, but same thing.
There is a big Wicker Man festival, isn't there? They don't actually burn somebody, but there is an actual...
But that just might be an extension of
the corn dolly. Yeah, it could be an extension from the corn dolly.
Yeah, you can possibly understand if they made corn dollies earlier in the season, perhaps they threw their corn dollies on the fire or something.
Possibly, which could be where it's all come from originally.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the Celts didn't last very long. They got a bit wiped out, didn't they, by the old Roman Empire. They came along, and within 400 years, they basically, changed the landscape of culture as we know it, because they'd sort of wiped out the Celts by then. Yes. So we were now under Roman rule. But they did they were very good, actually, the Romans. We found this out quite a lot when we look at religion and the origins of the Bible and stuff like that. Because although they would conquer, they would incorporate.
Yes, the Romans were very pragmatic in that. That's why they were so successful. They knew how to sort of appease the population, and because they had quite a vast empire, and they couldn't constantly be at war with all the tribes and stuff. So they would incorporate the beliefs of the lands they went to into their sort of pantheon, and just slightly tweak it a bit, and and everyone was happy.
Apparently they were. Or maybe not totally happy, but generally mulling along kind of happy. And they think that there was two festivals of Rome that incorporated the Celts kind of way of doing it as well. Mm-hmm. So in late October, there was a festival called Feralia, which was basically where the Romans commemorated the dead. So like the Day of the Dead for the Romans, basically. And then
just the Roman version.
Yeah, the Roman version of the Day of the Dead. And then, so we're only moving dates around a little bit here. And then the second, actually, was a day to honour Pomona, who was the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. Obviously, the apple is very symbolic, excuse me, in its own right. And there's a lot of traditions surrounding Halloween and apples. Actually, just a quick one. I saw a post the other day where somebody said, like, if carving pumpkins is too hard, carve an apple and then hang it up to dry, or just hang it up like you would your pumpkin, but you'd hang it rather than just pop it on the doorstep. And it dries, and it really is effective.
Yeah, well, you can think about it because pumpkins, I mean, they're a relatively modern addition to the sort of like the Halloween festival. Yeah, because originally, I mean, well, particularly here and even up in Scotland, it's sort of, was it neat parsnips, was it, or turnips?
Anyway, we'll get onto that in a minute. It was just a thought that because of the apple thing. So they think that is sort of like linked as well, with how they incorporated it into the Roman way of doing things. So, so anyway, then, of course, we get into Christian, and it changes again. So Pope Boniface the Fourth.
Right,
fourth.
Did I get the fourth, or is that the sixth?
No, that's 4.
It's the 4th. I'm getting there, everybody. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Well done. We're just. That's about as far as we've taught her. 5 comes next week.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, and that would just be a single V.
I always get my Roman numerals muddled up. I tell you, don't trust. If you have to crack a code.
I have 7.
If you have to crack a code, don't ask me. Particularly if it's got Roman numerals in it. He dedicated the Pantheon in Rome to all the Christian martyrs, and the Catholic feast of All Martyrs' Day was actually established in the Western Church.
Right.
Pope Gregory III expanded the festival to include all saints as well as martyrs, and moved it from May to November the 1st. So we get that link there, again pulling it through, commemorating people that are past that we should celebrate.
Yeah, and I suppose, they had a lot of saints, so, they just added the ones that weren't martyred as well, the ones that probably died peacefully in their bed. and
it falls quite nicely on November the 1st, where the Druids and all that were
exactly
celebrated.
Their New Year's Day.
And it's obviously that move from May, and that's quite a big move, and that is a sort of, that is quite a political sort of move, and they've obviously done that for this precise thing, because they're thinking, well, some of the natives sort of out on the branches, so to speak, are still doing this sort of, hocus pocus, so we'll give them this as well, so it sort of like clears our conscience as well. They can do it in a more acceptable way.
And it sort of fools them into celebrating their rituals as well.
It kind of brings it all under the same banner, doesn't it? Well, hold on a minute. We celebrate our Dead on the same day as you do. Same thing. You know what I mean?
Same thing, yeah.
And it's that dilution of belief system and how you would worship and what you believe in. It's a slow dilution through, the Romans, through Christianity, going and bringing everybody under like the same banner without them really sort of like, it's not too big a step. When you conquer somebody, you can bat them over the head with a new belief system, or you can incorporate it and gradually dilute it until it becomes the same belief system as yours. And that's really like, Richard
That is what happened.
Yeah, that's exactly how this happened. But we still have very strong Celtic links to the festival, believe it or not. Like when we, some of the traditions and that we do, they're very, very Celtic. They have survived, even though we also put it in regards to, there are other things that run alongside it as well, which is fantastic way of doing it if you're going to conquer somebody.
Well, yeah, it's just a natural progression, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In 1000 AD, the church made November the 2nd All Souls Day, which became definitely the day to honour the dead. And basically, it was exactly what we said on the tin. It just everybody bring it all under one banner, but it became then rather than a Celtic backwater kind of festival that people sort of like hid, it then became, actually, it's a church-sanctioned holiday. So there's a mindset change in the populace of, well, it takes the fun out of it, doesn't it, quite frankly, because it becomes church-sanctioned. So you're like,
oh dear, yeah, I've got to spend hours sitting in church. That must have really brightened the day up for them.
They did actually celebrate it very similar to Samhain.
Yeah.
They had bonfires, parades, dressing up, but you'd get saints and angels and stuff like that rather than just the devils and the skins and the heads and stuff like that. And so it becomes like, it takes all the fun out of it for the Druids, I'm afraid.
Yeah, poor Druids.
Well,
the Druids have gone a long time ago.
Now, the celebration was also called All Hallows or All Hallow Mass, which is actually from the Middle English right now. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. We've got another pronunciation muck-up coming. All Hallow Messe, meaning All Saints' Day.
Right, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Halloween.
The night before, which was basically the Celts' New Year's Eve, became All Hallows Eve.
Yeah, and you can see where it...
And then eventually Halloween, wasn't it?
And then it came through to Halloween. I did find another source for where Halloween, the word, comes from, and it was Halo and then Eve. So Halo Eve. And then obviously pronunciation changed it to Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were playing Halo.
Well, she's the ultimate mother, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's like the beginning of it all. Eve.
And, yeah, for some people she slips.
Yeah, she's a bit naughty girl, but, you know, most of us are. So apples, right? Talking of Eve, apples. Paul, tell me again, once again, there is no apple in the Bible, is there? No.
You're talking about the forbidden fruit in the Bible. Adam and Eve, or Eve, ate the forbidden fruit. Most people think it's the apple, but it wasn't. And I do believe there is some mention that it could have been a fig.
Yeah, I think the fig comes from because of, it's just mentioned as the forbidden fruit. You know, so, but I think the fig's even sort of pushing it a bit because that's driven by sort of the iconography of the time is you see Adam and Eve wearing fig leaves. They sort of, you know, some of the earlier Christians thought, oh, perhaps it was a fig, but there's no actual sort of definition of what the fruit actually was.
No, that's right.
But traditionally, we call it an apple.
But if you've got that word of Halo Eve, apples then become the apple then becomes incredibly symbolic for Halloween, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's a sort of like it was sort of one of the last sort of fruits to be sort of harvested and they could keep over the winter. So there was always sort of like of everything that you were storing and stuff. I mean, apples were relatively plentiful. You could afford to be a bit frivolous with them, especially at Halloween.
So you've got to remember as well that, you know, we wasn't literally given Halloween by God and it just was naturally existing. You know, at some stage there would have been one bloke that thought up the idea and it just spread from there. Maybe just like apples, and he thought, "Oh no, I'll have an apple." And
I think the purpose of apple is so prevalent through so many different mythologies and stories that have been told, and it is like, you know, let's look at the old adage. We talk about old adages. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's a very healthy fruit. It has a lot of minerals and chemicals. Nowadays it does. But like vitamins and minerals in it to keep you healthy. It's very good for your teeth.
Fruits are good for you, and so is vegetables. But then, you know, he quite, with the anecdote that an apple a day keeps the doctor away, maybe, you know, the doctor just walked past his house every day and he threw an apple at him.
Yeah, possibly.
Kept the doctor away, kept him out of the gate, didn't it?
But go back to the time when the Celts were working the land, they wouldn't have had the variety. you've got to remember the variety of vegetables and fruits was not what we have today. I mean, God, you go to the supermarket and it's fruits from around the world. They didn't have that. So apples were one of the main fruits that they used to use, and it was like so integral to their well-being and their longevity through the winter, getting them through the winter, because because they do store well, apples.
Yeah, keep them up in the loft all separate and make sure they're not touching, just line them all up. Yeah, they'll keep throughout the winter.
Mm-hmm. But Hercules, I mean, go back to Hercules. One of his tasks was to get an apple from the Garden of Hesperides. We've got it in Snow White, a poisoned apple. All of these things.
Yeah, there certainly is a sort of like a sort of mystique or something's grown up around the apple, yeah. And again, this is probably why the Christians incorporated the forbidden fruit for being an apple. Because there was a prevalence before that apples were, say, worshipped, were very important to a lot of people and used in religious rites.
Wasn't they classed as the fruit of knowledge? Yeah.
Quite possibly,
that's why they linked it, because it gave Eve knowledge, and that's what God didn't want, basically. And I think that's sort of the evolutionary jump that they used. But actually, in the Bible, it doesn't say that it was an apple.
It doesn't say apple.
It's just assumed. Yeah.
It's a very mystical fruit as well, because if you cut it in a certain way, the pips inside is basically a 5-pointed star.
Yeah, I've tried that as well, and it does work.
Yeah,
it's like the peanuts. With the salted peanuts, if you slice them in half, like they come in half anyway. Right? But you pull them apart, and you can, if you've got a really good imagination, you can see Santa in the middle with his little beard and little hat.
No.
Yeah.
I'm so going to have to do that now.
Yeah. I've got some peanuts in the kitchen. I'll be back
peanuts.
Yeah, he's going to get you back in peanuts. So it's also a very mystical fruit. So when you think about what they're doing on Halloween, they're reading fortunes and looking for omens for the future. How's the things going to work out for the future, and fortune telling and stuff like that. The apple then becomes very important in that festival. It becomes a symbolic, or the symbolism, or whatever the word is, symbology of. I keep getting told off by Andy, our producer, for getting the words wrong.
He's going to love this show.
He's going to be pulling this one apart, isn't he? I'm going to get a lesson. I can tell I'm going to get a lesson after this one. It becomes very important in regards to all that symbolism that comes through from the apple. So, oh my God. So one of the main games that we play, have you ever done apple bobbing?
Yes, many years ago.
Never been any good at it, but...
Oh, there is a trick to apple bobbing.
There is a trick, yeah. Would you like me to tell you the trick?
Go for it.
Right. Well, like apples float, and they're floating around in a bowl of water, and you got to put your face right in it. And people make the mistake of trying to push down.
Right.
But you don't. I'm actually trying to do it while I'm at my desk. How silly is that? Right. So you sort of you hover above the apple, and then you kind of blow out and bite at the same time. So you're sort of a bit like a horsey kind of thing while you bite. And
how'd you do it?
It'd be like a horse, right? A rump thing. Yeah, so you blow out at the same time as biting, and there's your trick.
Can you demonstrate for us?
I'm not going to demonstrate that.
I always done it the old-fashioned way, where you put your head over it and literally go straight to the bottom of the bucket with the apple resting it, and then bite when you press it against the bottom.
Yeah.
I didn't realise there was another way of doing it.
Yeah, while it's on top of the water. And it's there is I don't know,
just
it's probably a physics thing.
Probably, we'll have to get the physics books out and have a look.
Find out.
Put a hole in the bucket.
Yeah.
Or put a hole in the bucket. But
yeah.
I think that's called cheating, Paul.
I don't remember any rule saying that you could not put a hole in the bucket. Maybe tipping the bucket up might be a rule.
I done apple bobbing once for the kids, and I actually put cooking apples on. You try that, boys.
That is wicked.
I always like the donuts hanging down from the string, and you've got to try and eat it without.
Well, because they do say, because that's another variation of the apple bobbing, isn't it? You tie apples to string, and you sort of like got to sort of eat them. But again, there's sort of like I didn't realise though that once you got the apple from the bobbin, you actually have to peel it, don't you? But you have to try and get
with
the
your teeth, obviously.
No. You peel the apple, you have to try and get the peel all off in one, and then you throw it over your left shoulder. It's usually the left, isn't it? And then where and how it lands, and if it produces like an initial or something, that's supposed to be, a future sweetheart or somebody that has got their eye on you, perhaps. So there's obviously, again, this is possibly sort of apples being used for some sort of divination as well.
Yeah. I have tried this. It's very difficult. Firstly, to peel it in one. I always seem to break the peel. And secondly, I couldn't make sense of any of our initial in there. I think there's a bit loads of pareidolia going. You make it what you will. Do you know what I mean? But you can imagine the frivolity that would have gone on over that.
Well, you can imagine, peel it, and everyone sort of, you can imagine sort of like the group sort of, it'd be fun to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what it's all about, though, just having fun.
It is. It is. It's about having a bit of fun, isn't it? We've got to love a bit of fun. But they used to hang the apples as well sometimes rather than bobbing them.
Yeah, that's what he said about the donuts as well.
Yeah, we've changed it to something yummier.
Yeah.
Yummy donuts. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's when the jam dribbles all over your nose and face and stuff that...
Yeah. No, you have to just use ring donuts, Paul, not jam donuts.
No, jam donuts so much more fun. Looks like someone smashed you in the face afterwards.
Triple chocolate. Salted caramel.
Like the strawberry jam, so it looks red and it's all blood then, isn't it?
I think
down. Oh, he does take it another level, doesn't he, Apple?
Yeah. Oh, it's Halloween.
I'd like to know how. Yeah.
But there is another thought. When you do the apple bobbing, it's in water, obviously, and obviously the Celts used to do a lot of water scrying, and actually the Greeks, seers used to do a lot of water scrying as well. So you've got the double entendre of the the apple and the divination from the apple and the scrying side of it as well by actually putting your face into the water and not trying not to drown, I suppose. But yeah, so that's another aspect of it. So all these things always linking back to, contacting the other side for messages and omens and signs and foretelling the future.
Yeah, you can actually sort of see, and as you said, it's just coming to my mind, they use the water, bob the apple. The apple would sit halfway in the water, crossing the divide, isn't it? That veil. I can see that.
And not once did any of the spirits on the other side of that apple ever help me get the apple.
No.
Well, you didn't do your breathy out thing when you were trying to bob your apple, was you?
No, you didn't do your Neddy horse. Yeah.
You didn't do your harumphing horse whilst you're trying. Honestly, try it, guys. Try it. Now, although we've said that the Romans did incorporate some of the Celtic festivals to make it, to bring them under sort of thing, there is no verifiable evidence to support it, but we do know that the Romans had a festival called Pomana, and we do know the Celts had these traditions with apples. There is an automatic assumption that it's been linked, and it's around the same sort of time, but there's no actual evidence to support it.
Well, no, that's it. I mean, the Romans were over here, so... it's no huge assumption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got nothing there's no sort of like Roman mosaic of apple bobbing and stuff like that, is what I would say.
Yeah.
No, they were too busy eating different fruits. Like plums and
nuts.
Yeah.
The peanuts. That looks like Santa Claus.
All that debauchery they'll do, yes.
Right, another way of divining your love interest on Halloween was to name some nutshells. So basically, you name the nutshell after the one you got your eye on, place it by the fire, and then you watch for the reaction of the nut. And it depends on how it reacts, will depend on the answer, basically. So if it pops, if the nut pops and flies off the hearth, that's not really good, is it? Because it's run away.
You stand no charge, yeah. You're blown out, mate.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that just be corn? Not nut at all.
Not popcorn. These are nuts, like walnuts.
Yeah, hazelnuts.
Or hazelnuts, yeah.
Do they do that? Do they explode and shoot across the room then? Or
yeah, they will do, yeah. I mean, when I was younger, during conker season, I used to put my conkers in the oven because I thought it would make them harder. And they used to explode. I was never very successful at that exercise.
I was always taught to boil them.
Yeah, or soak them in vinegar. There was loads of sort of old wives' tales, but I was never very successful conqueror at school. But there you go. I'm still suffering. Yeah, but I'm nearly over it.
Richard the Conqueror didn't really go well, and it was always a kid called William that won.
Yeah, that's right. That damn William.
Anyway, back to your nuts, guys. If it's in the fire and it burns slow and steady, then that's a good sign, right? That person is wanting a bit of you too. If it's not burning, slow
not if you're hungry and you wanted to eat that nut. That's not very good, is it?
But this shows you that it's that watching for this. Actually, this is very, very. You're watching for a sign. So you're looking for omens and signs, and you're reading something in a way that, for a positive or a negative reaction, you want the nut to burn slow and steady. It's sweeter, like a sweet chestnut. You don't want that to pop and fling itself out the pan. So when you think of it in terms of that, you can understand how they sort of like made the correlation between you've named the nut after your beloved person.
Yeah, I can understand that, but then if you buy nuts that are gonna pop and stuff when
they would have foraged these, but they don't go to the supermarket. They would have foraged them.
You might as well just told your goldfish, and if it dies, then it's a bad sign.
Well, it kind of is if it dies.
But you've got more chance of it being alive, providing if you fed it, of course. so you'd always be positive. You'd always have the positive outlook. Obviously, unless it was the fish's time to go, and
Anyway,
you might get a better deal out of that one.
Bringing the scrying back in, they used to do water scrying through the Celtic times, but when mirrors became invented, really bad grammar there, when mirrors were invented, it got took over by mirror scrying. Now, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, have you ever done that on Halloween?
Who hasn't? Although, to be fair, the first time I'd done that sort of thing, it was the Candyman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'd done the Candyman after watching Candyman.
What, you say bloody Candyman, bloody Candyman?
Or just Candyman?
I walked in and said, "Oh, bloody Candyman again." No, the way to call the Candyman was to stand in front of the mirror and say his name 3 times.
Oh, okay.
And then he'd come through the mirror and murder everyone in the house.
Was that
right?
That was a film, wasn't it, Candyman?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
And was that what happened in the film?
Yes.
You called him through the mirror?
Yes.
Oh, I see. So that's sort of like
the same sort of thing as Bloody Mary. Yeah, it was just a modern day version.
Modern day version. Well, what you're supposed to do is be alone in front of your mirror with a candle and basically say Bloody Mary 3 times. Now, we don't quite know who this is referring to, who Bloody Mary was. There's several possibilities. But the origins of this particular tradition go back to around about the 1700s. Could be Queen Mary I. She was known as Bloody Mary, wasn't she?
Yeah,
I would have thought.
I quite favour that one, to be quite honest.
Too.
Yeah,
to be fair,
makes sense, doesn't it?
She wasn't a pretty girl.
No, she wasn't. You wouldn't want her to see her reflection. Cool, I've had a late night. I need to go to bed earlier.
Depends on how many beers you had, I suppose.
Yeah.
It could be Mary Worth. There's talk of it being a lady called Mary Worth, and there is another lady as well. What's her name? She's Mary. Obviously.
Oh, Mary, yeah.
She was called the Bloody Count or something. But she's not English. I can't bloody remember her name.
Oh, yes, I think I know the person.
I should have listened to my haunted histories a bit better, shouldn't I? Because Penny covered this.
Yes, she was the countess that murdered God knows how many people, isn't it? Yeah.
But we don't really know. But I have to say I favour the Queen Mary I of England, because she was enough to scare anybody with her with her burnings. She killed a lot of people, and she wasn't very well liked. Which is very strange, because when she took the throne, she was actually had the public favour. They actually deliberately put her on the throne because she was usurped by Lady Jane Grey, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And then...
I mean, she was, and then she became, then her religion sort of took over, and she did go on a bit of a spree, a bit of a killing spree, and the Protestants, which was the principal religion, but you had a Catholic monarch on the throne, and it wasn't going to work out.
Right. Oh, I don't know. But she wasn't, in the end, she was hated. And when Queen Elizabeth came to the throne, she was a lot more liked, and everyone was a lot happier by all intents and purposes. So I actually think it's to do with her. That's my personal favourite.
Yeah. I'll go with that one.
So, have you witnessed, I mean, I know you did Candyman, Paul, but have you had any strange occurrences whilst doing the Bloody Mary mirror scrying?
No.
I've done a bit of scrying, but I've never done this Bloody Mary thing. But I've never really sort of had anything to write home about.
No, you can't do the Bloody Mary thing, Richard, because you're expected to be on the show next week.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we've got to behave ourselves.
Yeah.
No getting out of it.
I have seen somebody do this as an experiment. And then they had a pentagram set up, and they did the Bloody Mary thing. Nothing happened. Didn't really. Oh well.
Do surprise me.
That didn't happen. But when they went into the other room where they were doing their normal Halloween ritual, they got some really strange things happen. Like the candles would just blow out and stuff like that, which was not through breeze, as everyone goes, oh, it's just a breeze, it blew it out. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't, it was in a sealed room, and they did have some strange things happen after that. And was it the Bloody Mary, or was it because they were doing a ritual anyway? Who knows? You know?
No, I mean, it could have just been if there was a spirit there, and again, assuming spirits do actually exist, and he see you doing that, he'd be like, "What a wally! Oh, I'm going to really scare them now." So they've done that. Now I'm going to keep blowing them candles out.
I have to say, if you was a spirit, it would be so tempting, wouldn't it?
It would.
You would have to. It'd just be rude
I don't know
not to.
I don't know what they get up to over there, but on the other side, but it must be a little bit boring for them sometimes, especially the spirits that have been there since like 1600s, just hanging around for some ghost hunter to come along, and you've got to do things like that, haven't you?
Well, I think that's definite. If you are a spirit, waiting around for a ghost hunter to come along, you've got to jump up and down on them a bit.
Exactly. Sit there twiddling your thumbs for like 300-400 years, and then along comes a ghost hunter going, "Is anyone there? Show me a sign." You want to twat them around your
head. There is another version of this particular tradition, which is to walk backwards up the stairs, holding a candle and a hand mirror, whilst reciting the same words. Right, that is just a disaster for accident, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people have come to grief trying that more so than the standard mirror scrying.
Well, she's supposed to appear in the mirror, and you can ask her questions on this one. Again,
and I bet all the ones that tripped up the stairs backwards all said that a ghost pushed them. to avoid embarrassment.
I think, that is just a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, eyes rolling twice there.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Anyway, carving of pumpkins. Now, it used to be turnips. Have you tried carving a turnip by any chance?
I haven't, and I didn't know about the turnip thing until this year, sort of thing, because obviously I looked into this a little bit. But no, I didn't know they used turnips, so I've never tried that.
They still do up in Scotland. It's still the preferred. Yeah, it's still the preferred method.
I'm actually going to try that, I think, this year, because have you ever tried carving a pumpkin? God, the smell.
I quite like that smell.
No, I can't stand it. And that horrible stringy stuff, no, I can't be doing. That is just
tried
so
it
wrong.
once, so it's too much like hard work. I mean,
it's definitely easier to carve a pumpkin than it is a turnip.
No, I'm gonna do a turnip this year.
Okay. Well, let us know how you got on, because they're a lot harder to carve, which is why they think the pumpkin took it over, because the size, and believe it or not, it's easier to carve.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and also it's a bit more. I mean, God, turnips are tiny.
Didn't you buy a pumpkin carving knife once, Kerry, from Poundland?
Mate, don't even bother. You need a full-blown machete to carve it. I don't know how people do it. Either I've got really weak hands, but every year the boys, I've got two boys, every year, can we carve the pumpkins? You know it's me scooping out the innards and getting it to the point where we're carving it. And then they go, they can't. Because particularly when they were little, you couldn't give them a really sharp knife. So I bought these carving sets. And in my head, I've seen all these beautiful carvings that everyone's done. Every year, I can't do anything beyond the traditional, like, jack-o'-lantern type look. You know, the triangle nose, triangle eyes, and jaggy teeth. That's the best I can manage. I can't get it beyond that.
Yeah, I know it is a bit of a chore.
Yeah, I think to do the turnip, you could literally just cut it in half and then scoop it all out in the middle and then just stick it back on top.
Well, yeah, like I say, you have your go at it.
I'm going to do that. Yeah,
you have your go, and I would like to see a picture of it posted.
Absolutely, I was about to say I'd post a picture on the group page.
Yeah, please do.
On the Facebook concept group page. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Right.
Because I've got nothing better to do for this coming week.
For this coming week, yeah. We'll get a turnip and have a go at carving it.
Absolutely.
Right.
I've got a week.
A week of trying to scoop out a turnip, everybody. Yeah. Let's see how he gets on.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, absolutely.
And obviously we know them as jack-o'-lanterns, don't we?
Yes, that's what they're called.
Right, this came from a tale from a guy called Stingy Jack. He made a deal with the devil because he was a bit of a naughty boy, was our Jack. And then when he died, he tried to enter heaven, but they wouldn't let him in. So he went and complained to the devil, and the devil said, well, you're not coming to hell because I promised you wouldn't. Didn't promise you'd get into heaven. I just promised you wouldn't come to hell. He said, but I tell you what, here's an ember, and that will help light your way. So poor old Jack was left lost spirit, wandering the highways and the byways with a jack-o'-lantern to help guide him, which is why we make jack-o'-lanterns, and you're supposed to carry them around. They used to carry the turnips around to make them proper little lanterns, but we don't need that bit now.
Surely that would make him confused, though. If he's got his own ember to show him the way, and then we do jack-o'-lanterns, surely that's going to confuse him. He's going to be like, which one have I got to, which way have I got to go?
Which way am I going? I don't know.
Where do I go?
Well, now we put them on, we tend to put them on our doorstep, and that's supposed to ward off evil spirits.
I think now it's a sign that people can actually come and trick or treat at your door.
Now it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's a symbol that you're open for
business.
I actually think we should start, especially this year, I think we should move away from treats and just stick with the tricks. So, all the little kids and whatever, or maybe the bigger kids, they knock on the door and you could be at the top window above the door with a bucket of water
Well, you just want to go around. You want to be the one tricking people, not them tricking you.
Well, yeah, because they shout trick or treat, and you could just go shout out the window, trick, and then throw the water at them.
I have to say, I did take the boys trick or treating one night, and there's an area on Canvey that's particularly embracing, shall we say, of this tradition. And there was one door we knocked on, and this bloke had proper made the effort. He dressed up and everything. And as he opened the door, it sort of went into like a tomb. He'd done the hallway out and everything. And he sort of opened the door, scared the crap out of the kids. They went scurrying up down the road. He was loving it. He was cracking up.
There's a couple of places I know of that do that, and they do full on, all the shrubs and everything outside have got cobwebs and spiders, and they've got like a 6-foot model of lurch or whatever. And as you walk past, it's censored, so it's like, come in.
Oh, brilliant. How brilliant is that?
Yeah. Oh, it's good.
Oh,
really good, some of them.
That. That's been, anyway.
They should definitely do trick-or-treating awards or something, because some of these houses are really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of effort goes into them, and you think we go, there's the odd house in the UK, but in America they all do it, don't they? Before we get into that, though, let's take a quick break and hold that thought. And we'll be right back.
I'm holding.
After this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And before the break, we were looking at the history and folklore and traditions of Halloween, and we're going to continue with that now, really, is what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do, isn't it?
We've had the break, so...
We've actually had the break. Oh, I'm really not with it, guys.
well, unless you wanted another break now, and then we can have
another break. Let's carry on. Because we were talking about trick-or-treating, and we were sort of talking about that, weren't we? This is actually a middle-age tradition.
It is.
And this is where, it's gone from a thinning of the veils where you can, use divination and contact your ancestors and forecast and stuff like that, to where basically spirits are wandering the earth, basically, willy-nilly. They're just able to cross the divide and be amongst us, which, it's a very subtle mindset change, isn't it? From contacting them and being easier to contact them because the veil is thin, to them then stalking the earth.
It's very much bringing up the image for me of the episode of Doctor Who, Army of Ghosts, when the Cybermen were coming over to this dimension.
Yeah.
And they appeared as ghosts initially, and everyone thought they were like uncles and fathers and mothers and stuff. So they obviously welcomed them into the home.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then after that, because they kept coming back, they fractured the veil, basically.
Mm.
Yeah, it's quite telling that this sort of happens around Middle Ages, because it is about this time when the idea of actual spirits actually coming into the world of the living became very prevalent. I actually wrote a blog about it, actually. It was to do with the notion of purgatory and they weren't there, ghosts or spirits weren't there so much as to be scared of. They would come back and visit, usually a relative. Very rare would a ghost appear to someone they didn't know, and it would usually be to ask for some sort of assistance, principally to get out of purgatory and go on their merry way. But about the Middle Ages, you can see the development of sort of like the ghost that we know today.
Mm.
As sort of being something that sort of crosses over from the world beyond, because before the Middle Ages and stuff, ghosts were principally, you wouldn't have had much contact with them, if ever. You know, there's not a lot. There is some literature, but not a lot.
It's almost like before we or the people would seek them out.
Yes,
like
you would seek them.
We would do the work to cross the divide to contact them, whereas now it's gone from us contacting them to them being able to come and go as and when they want to. And at times of the year, the veil is thin enough for them to be able to just do it. And then we get a sinister overtone with this as well. It's gone from contacting your ancestors for omens and divination and stuff like that and wonderful things to evil entities and demons and, it becomes a more sinister overtone, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a fascinating sort of subject area, and when I was researching the blog, I thought this will make a good show in future. So we'll have to bear this one in mind, sort of like the evolution of the ghost. But that's basically it. Sort of, but even in the Middle Ages, they weren't classed as being particularly anything to fear. You could be startled by them, but they would principally come over, ask for some sort of assistance. A couple of times, and when they received whatever assistance, usually prayers being offered up or something like that, you wouldn't see them again.
And then you've got the evolution of the costume thing, whereas like back in the Celt days, they would dress up with like skins and heads and stuff like that as a form of worship to their deities and the Fae and stuff like that. Whereas now it's so they could walk amongst while you're trick or treating on the streets. You can you blend in with the spirits that are wandering the streets, so they don't harass you. And the trick part of it is the Fae are very known as mischievous little things. They're very tricksty. Are the Fae, fairies, elementals. So
especially those Cornish pixies.
The Cornish pixies are very, very mischievous. So you'd leave out treats for them. That's why the first slice of a cake you should leave out for the fairies. You put honey and milk out for them and stuff like that. So to keep them happy, because you live alongside them. But we've gone from living alongside them and then being tricky to being sinisterly and doing nastier tricks. You know what I mean? So the trick or treat thing comes from you're dressing up so you can walk amongst the evil entities that are crawling around the street so they don't bother you, and you want a treat, so you want to be appeased, so you don't do a trick. But if you didn't give a treat, you'd do a minor trick, like move something or hide something. You know what I mean? So it wasn't anything that was detrimental to the person. They'd find it was like, those pesky children. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's that evolution of belief system and how we incorporated that into our form of worship. And so this all happened in the Middle Ages time. You know what I mean? And actually, to be fair, if you've seen some of the old photographs, go to the Victorian photographs of Halloween. They're horrific. The costumes are horrific.
Plus, it was a sort of like a time. I should imagine it was also sort of like a bit of an April Fool's sort of time, and it was a bit of an excuse for people to go out and be mischievous and to blame the Fae. You know, it was sort of like an accepted thing to do. But, I know some of the tricks now are a bit outlandish, you're getting your car wrapped up in toilet roll or something like that. But I think, but as you said, Kerry, they're very sort of subtle things. They would move something or, nothing like it is today.
No, and there used to be an exchange as well. So if somebody came to your farm or whatever and did the trick or treat thing, you would give the person a treat and they would give you a treat rather than... and it used to be called mumming.
Yes, I actually saw this in the research earlier, and yes, and I am familiar with the term mumming, which does actually make sense because it was if they received a treat, you would give something in return, and they would usually sing a song or recite a bit of verse or something like that, sort of something very sort of benign. But during the Middle Ages, there was a huge sort of explosion in something called the mummers' plays, where travelling minstrels would go around and perform plays, basically to sort of get money. they would set up in the market square. The village would come out and they would perform their plays and stuff, and they would receive food and perhaps a coin in exchange for that. So I found that quite interesting when it came up.
Yeah, it just shows how things, get swallowed up and taken into different areas, doesn't it? It's this evolution. Now, poor people would visit the houses of wealthier families and see pastries called soul cakes.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it?
And then this becomes more religion, because you would then pray for the souls of the homeowners, dead relatives. So if you give me a nice bit of cake, I'll pray for your dead relatives, basically. And that was known as souling.
Mm-hmm.
And then that has obviously moved on to wanting treats.
Yeah, sweets and, well, that's about it really, isn't it?
So question, would you give money?
I've never given money.
No, I've never given money. I'd always buy like the packs of sweets, the multi-pack things, and just give them a little pack.
Yeah.
I've never given money, but people have.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to go trick-or-treating with my godsons. And yeah, people wouldn't have sweets or anything, but they'd give them £1 or whatever. So they can go and buy their own.
Yeah, I've never given money.
It's happened.
To be fair, some nights on Halloween, I've had so many people at the door, I'd need to be a millionaire.
Yeah, that's right.
I've run out of sweets.
Probably you'll get some enterprising child come round with a machine. Goes, it's all right.
I'll take card. Card, blank checks and card.
Yeah. Chip and pin. Here we go.
But then we go to alms for the poor, don't we? They used to give alms to the poor on certain days. Of the other church used to. So back in the day, giving money to the poor or food to the poor wasn't such a... Like nowadays, it's, that's where we go, nah, it's begging.
Well, we still have that tradition today, don't we? When the Queen offers Maundy money, she sort of gives it to sort of certain people.
Yeah.
I think it's £1 for every year the monarch is and how old the monarch is. It's specially minted sort of money. I mean, people don't... It's worth a lot more than what it is. And if you get awarded your Maundy money, it's something... It's a bit of an investment.
So you can't just turn up as you'll give you money?
No, it's
like an award type thing.
Oh.
Like... You'd
but
go
it is sort of based in this medieval tradition of the monarch offering money to the poor and needy.
Yeah, I've actually got some because I collect coins. And
right.
I've got some Maundy money, but I haven't got the whole set. I've got 2 or 3 of them, I think.
Yeah,
in my set. But I would like to have the whole complete set.
Are they different then?
Yeah, they are. They're the one I can remember actually has got like the crown at the top. And then the number 3 underneath. Okay. And I think it's got the laurel around it as well. But that's one of them. Yeah,
the Royal Mint the money especially for it. It is legal sort of tender, but you don't spend it. And you keep.
Yeah, no, keep it definitely. If you do come across any of it, keep it.
So. Well, anyway, we've come a little bit off but this is to do with alms, isn't it? Giving alms to the poor and that particular tradition. But this is sort of what, going back to today, they would give money as well as little treats of food. And if you was an adult, you'd get ale.
Yeah.
You'd be so drunk.
I reckon back then the kids would have had it as well.
Well, yeah, probably.
Well, I must admit, I've also...
Saved the water.
I used to go to a place called Kentwell Hall when they do reenactment days.
Oh, I know.
And it's like a medieval period, and they had medieval ale there. And believe me, no one ever wants to try
that.
When I went there, I tried a stinging nettle ale. Someone made a batch of that. That was very nice, actually.
Well, I'm going to have to try that because the ale was disgusting.
Yeah, I think the old ales are sort of buttered ale was one as well, which is a bit.
Well, there's still a lot of ales around now, aren't there? In the pubs, old hand-drawn ales.
Well, I went to Harry Potter World and I had butter beer. That's nice.
Yeah, buttered beer or buttered ale.
I found that really sweet.
Yeah, it was.
Which is basically just ale, beer with a butter mix for it.
Oh, it was nice. Whatever it was.
So there is another thing that if you're an adult and you're not allowed to go trick-or-treating because you get to an age where it becomes, like, not acceptable these days. It just takes all the fun out of it. And my kids are too old now. So now we do horror movie. And this has become a tradition every year as well. And this is where we go into my lovely little Paul Rook's world of life.
Oh, yeah.
You love a movie, don't you? Love a horror movie.
I do. And particularly the sort of movie we're going to be talking about, because the most iconic movie to watch at Halloween would be Halloween.
Of course.
Well, there you go.
And it's the iconic slasher-up movie, along with, like, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all that sort of stuff.
I think it was the first, wasn't it, in that sort of genre of film?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but I just love those sort of films. And they're still continuing them today. Oh. I mean, the original was out in, 78?
Yeah.
And, and I think wasn't it last year they released Halloween?
What, the reboot? Again?
I don't think it was a reboot because it still had that woman in it.
Jamie Lee
Curtis. Yeah, and she was like an old woman. And Michael, whatever his name was, the killer,
Mike Myers.
was... Yeah, Michael Myers, that's it, yeah.
I've not actually seen this movie. I would just like to point this out.
No, it was Michael Myers, yeah. He was. But he was in a mental institution for the criminally insane, and he escaped. And as usual, he'd go after his sister, and it's just the same thing over and over again. There's like 40 of them, isn't there? Not really, but there is a lot of them. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good film. It's a good one.
I've only ever seen the original, and that was way, way back when, probably not long after it was actually released. I probably got it as a pirate video or something many years ago.
There was a whole genre around that time, and loads of different kinds of horror movies were released around that time. But this does seem to be the most iconic one. And actually, because it's called Halloween, we're going to have a little look at it. Now, John Carpenter, like when we looked at Stephen King, and John Carpenter's another one, when you look at them, you think, what goes on in their heads? They completely... it's horrific what they think of.
Well, you say that, but then, John Carpenter and Wes Craven's another one.
Yeah.
And obviously Stephen King. They all do the traditional horror film that does stick to the horror film rules. And we covered those in another show as well.
Yes, we have done How to Survive a Horror Movie. We have done that.
Yeah, we've done that one ages ago. But if you really want a disturbed mind, Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's
that he takes that to a new level.
He does. That's pure psychopathic level, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I kind of wondered.
There are worse ones out there.
Sorry, I kind of did wonder where they kind of got where John Carpenter, because obviously we're talking about Halloween, where John Carpenter actually got his inspiration from. Right now, he did go to university. He went to the Western Kentucky University, and he took psychology. I wonder what he makes of himself.
What
if he psychoanalyzed himself? And he did have to visit a mental institution. And when he was there, he actually came across a child. They actually got to see some really seriously mentally ill patients for this psychology course. And there was a child, and this child made such an impression on him that it planted the seed for Halloween.
So he was literally the inspiration for Michael Myers.
Well, that's where it came from. And he said the look, it was all to do with the look in the eyes. He said it was just like, the lack of humanity in the eyes. He said it was evil.
Mm-hmm. Well, it must have made an impression on him.
It really was bad. It really did make an impression.
In hindsight, I mean, it could quite have easily been the fact that he was on medication, dosed up to the eyeballs, and having electrocution. Was it electro?
Yeah,
whatever they call that treatment, where they're wired up to the national grid and have 50,000 volts pushed through their brains and things.
Electric shock therapy.
That's the one. Think of that then. But it could have been all that, and it was in the 70s, wasn't it? So.
Yeah, because you look at some of the treatments they were doing back then, it's quite horrific compared to...
Absolutely.
Actually, if you look at how they've treated mental health through the ages, it's actually... Now, there's a show, quite frankly, and you can understand why people would... how they would translate it or take it as being evil when it's actually just so far out of their form of reference. Because of the treatments and the drugs and God knows what else that they're being put through. And also the way they were treated in these mental institutes at times is going to make you not a very nice person because of the way you're treated. And we'll get onto this afterwards because that is something I want to go into, or I want to have a little discussion on. But there is another... Well, when I looked at this, there was a real life story that, John Carpenter based this on. But it is just this is pure urban legend, this story. Yeah. But when you read lots of different reports out there on the internet, it's all put down as the real life story of Stanley Steers, which was supposed to be the inspiration for Halloween. But it's a folklore. There's no verifiable evidence that we can find that backs up this story. Like, it would have, if it was this story, if it was true, there would be newspaper reports. There would
absolutely.
You'd be able to track who Stanley Steers was. You'd be able to do that. But no, there's a lot of information about it, and but people have made it up as they've embellished it as it's gone through. But this is supposed to be...
people do that. It's Chinese whispers, isn't it?
You get an iconic movie. The movie comes first, and then sort of these sort of myths and legends build up after the fact. I mean, Carpenter probably did say, did probably say his sort of bit about when he visited the institution and stuff, and that's it. That's all there is to it, and that's where he got the inspiration, the idea, but you can't really read anything more into that,
No, but
there's some leap from going from that to saying it's based on a true story.
There is a film out there that apparently was based on a true story, and then they just ruined it after with the sequels. It was Paranormal Activity. Because when it first started, when the first one came out, they said it was a true story. It was filmed by the owners of the house. It was a true story and everything, and it just scared the pants off you. Which, okay, I can see why they did it. And at the end, they said like so and so had disappeared, never to be seen again. And then out come the second one, which was about her sister, and it sort of coincided with the first one. And when the woman disappeared from the first one, you see her on the CCTV of the sister's house, killing all them and taking the child. And then in the third one, it was what happened after that. Or it was just screwed up. It was like, she was never seen again, but this is what happened to her after it. You sort of shot yourself in the foot with that one, didn't you?
Well, there's a lot of films along that sort of I would call that the Blair Witch genre type movie.
I enjoyed that film. I know a lot of people didn't.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
I don't know what they're watching.
The thing is, I think it adds weight to it, and if you think it's real, it's scary. It's we talk about the thrill of the chase, don't we? And it's the thrill seeking, isn't it? Whatever way you want to do it, whether it's going out on a paranormal investigation, watching a horror movie, going on a roller coaster, or you know what I mean, all those things. It's the thrill. It's thrill seeking, And if you can, particularly with horror, if you get your kick, I suppose, from a horror movie, the fact that there could be some truth to that adds weight to the thrill of watching it, doesn't it? You're lucky, for one, you're counting your blessings you weren't in it. You didn't live that.
I think the more terrifying ones are the ones that are realistic. Like, for example, the Paranormal Activity. When it first came out, it was billed as a true story, and some of the activity was so subtle you could actually probably believe it. Where with other films, it's just so over embellished, it's laughable. The Conjuring 2, for example, I laughed my head off all the way through that. But I knew the case. I knew the real case. You know, and it was so over embellished, it just made me laugh my head off. So for me, that was just ruined that film. But yeah, I think the ones that are more realistic and the things you think to yourself, well, actually, that could happen, is more scary. Again, this is why I like the slasher films and Scream and all that sort of thing. But there's so twists and turns. It's, you know.
We're seeing that these days, though, with various like series, aren't we? We've seen that with The Haunting of Hill House, and now we're seeing that with The Haunting of Bly Manor. You know, that kind of...
Yeah, but again, with those ones, they are old stories, old ghost stories, and that's all they are.
But they're the best.
They are. The Victorians were really good at telling the old ghost stories.
Oh, yeah.
And that's almost what it's like. It's done in that sort of genre. Okay, I mean, Bly Manor wasn't set in the Victorian period, but it was still done in that type.
And that sort of gothic, hint of gothicness about it. And there certainly does seem to be a bit of a revival at the moment of sort of focusing
I've actually watched
on that sort of genre.
And everyone's going on about it on Netflix and on social media saying how rubbish it is. But actually, it's a really good ghost story. So many twists and turns. And there are some episodes that leave you like, what the hell? Got to watch the next one now.
I'm loving it.
I am. I loved it. Absolutely. And didn't see the ending coming.
I'm not a horror fan. Like a horror movie kind of fan. I jumpy films. I don't do jumpy films. I don't like, because they play on my mind. Yeah. The psychological side of it plays on my mind, and I end up not sleeping, and it becomes a nightmare. So I don't tend to watch things that are like the horror movies. I never really got into. I've never watched Halloween or Friday the 13th. Yeah, I've watched The Evil Dead.
Yeah, okay. I didn't like The Evil Dead, but yeah.
So yeah, I say love The Evil Dead. It's not the right way of putting it at all, is it? I enjoyed, shall we say. Yeah. But then it takes it a little bit more out the realm, doesn't it? You know, they find this book. I mean, not being funny, if you'd seen the book itself, you would have gone, just don't.
Yeah, right? Don't do it.
No, just don't do it. You know what I mean? But I think there's a difference, isn't there, between pure slasher movie, if there's got humour in there, like Scream had humour in there. Well, I found it funny. Maybe
well, the Scream sort of that was a parody.
Yeah, it's a teen. Well, no, not the first one, wasn't. It went on to become more parodied, didn't it?
Well, I thought the first one was a parody. You know, it had all the elements of the classic slasher movie, and didn't it have sort of somebody commentating on part of it, saying, "Oh no, you should never go in the garden when they look through the window." You know,
I thought that was later ones.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That was sort of later ones. They sort of brought other horror movie kind of. You'd recognise various horror movies in there and stuff like that. But the first one wasn't, was it? It was quite. It was like teenage. It was teenage slasher films, movie.
The Scream films were set in a high school, and all with the kids. But I think you might be getting confused with some of the parody films because they started with Scream. I think it was called Scary Movie.
Oh yes,
that's right. Yes,
parody. And that's the parody one. And there was that they were literally taking the mick out of all the horror genres. Scream got it big time, Like you had the slasher bloke hiding in the house, and he's like, "I bet you can't tell where I am." And
that's
said,
right.
Yeah, you're behind the curtain because I can see your feet. And he's like, "Well, turn around, I'll hide again."
Yeah, that's right. That was a scary movie. I always get the two muddled up.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed Scream. I will say that. I did enjoy Scream. That was with Courtney Cox and whatnot, wasn't it? That's it.
But they have got a TV series of it now on Netflix, I believe it is, and that is really good.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Remade it. Yeah, literally remade it. It's still called Scream, but it's a TV series. Really good.
Oh, right.
What was the film that was the basis of the invention of the millimeter? Was that White Noise?
Yes, White Noise.
And the millimeter we use even to this day in paranormal investigations, don't we? In fact, some people say
we do.
Don't use a K2, use a millimeter.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay, but it's just EMF. It's just a glorified EMF meter. That's all it is. I don't see it as much more than that. So much more than that. I mean, some millimeters have got like temperature gauges on it and other bits and pieces, but you can get different EMF meters with needles on to give you a specific reading. I don't think millimeters are needed.
So what do we make then of this? I mean, let's talk tech for a little bit on this one. From movies and that white noise, you're supposed to leave a TV on without being tuned into we see this in Poltergeist, didn't we? A TV, and then you go, they're back, coming through the TV screen. Do we think then that we can contact, or that is a medium we can use to speak to spirits of the dead on the assumption that they're real, obviously, or the SB7, which is the spirit box, or things like that? What do we think of that?
I think with the white noise, it is literally just you've got the visual, but it is still frequencies, and that's what you're dealing with. So it's just an idea that spirits can communicate through that frequency as well. That's the theory behind it. Whether or not they actually can, I don't know any investigators who have actually investigated that side of it.
I can see the logic of it, flooding a room with a white noise. I can see what's trying to be attempted, and it does sort of make sense. But again, whether it actually does sort of work or does aid communication or manifestation or whatever you like to call it, I mean, I simply wouldn't know that, but I can certainly see what people are getting at, and I know a lot of people do sort of like use it, and I think it's got legs still. They should carry on tinkering with it. It's funny you should talk about white noise. I was looking for a radio station last night, and it was on the internet, and there are radio stations out there that specifically broadcast just white noise, brown noise, blue noise, any coloured noise you like, and I think these are to aid sort of people sleeping or people with tinnitus and stuff like that. They can just put their earplugs in and sort of drift off. But
absolutely, and it's just about different frequencies, and there are certain frequencies that you can't hear, but your children can, because there is attuned to that sort of thing. And as you get older, it's almost like you lose some of the hearing for certain frequencies. So, I think, there could be something in it. Whether or not it's actually been really looked at and investigated properly, not by any of the teams that are out there, and I'm talking scientifically, could there be something in it? Again, it's a possible thing, because, we get white noise through the radios as well, and a lot of teams use the radios and get really good results out of that. So I don't see why those frequencies, the visual frequencies, can't do the same.
One of my favourite tools to use is actually an SB7, the spirit box. I really enjoy using that, and I know that it's scanning through radio waves, so you're going to get the odd word coming through and whatnot. So So you're looking for sentences that go over a cycle, aren't you?
Yeah.
Or words that go over a cycle through the spirit box. But I like using the spirit box. I hold my hands up, I'm a spirit box girl. I really enjoy that. But I wouldn't necessarily take that as proof. I'd find it interesting.
Yeah, I think they can only ever sort of be interesting. Sort of like the alleged communications you hear from them are too small. They're very sort of one word and stuff like that. And as much as you would want to believe that, and as being some sort of communication, you're going to need more than that.
And Paul, have you had more than one or two words through a spirit box? Because I have.
No, I've used something called the Echo Vox.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a bit similar to the spirit box. Just again working on different frequencies. And we was actually calling out for spirit, and I was sat on a leather sofa with some of the members of the public, and they were talking to me about what I would like to see as an investigator on investigation. And I had this it was a phone app with the Echo Box, and I had it running. We wasn't talking to spirit, but I said to the members of the public, what I would love to see is a spirit pick this sofa up with me on it and launch it across the room. That's what I would like at that particular moment. And with that, a very sarcastic response come over the Echo Vox, and it told me to F off. And it was so sarcastic. It was like, wow, It wasn't just like the normal get out sort of thing. It was F off. That impressed me a little bit. I was quite taken back.
I bet you found that quite funny too.
I did. We all did. Actually.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Certainly an interesting one.
So here's the next question then. Where have you investigated on Halloween in previous years?
Oh, Cole House Fort in Kent. No, Essex even, sorry.
Yeah.
Reculver Towers in Kent. I think we went up to Dover Castle once. It wasn't an investigation, but it was during the day on Halloween. I've been there. Fort Amherst is another one. And this year, fingers crossed, and I know it's only a week away.
Yeah.
But fingers crossed I'm going to the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre.
Yeah, and I'm coming to that, hopefully.
If all
goes to plan, and that would be my first Halloween investigation.
And I'm really looking forward to it because it is on the Blue Moon, and you've got so much involved in that night as well. We do have regular spirit contact, or alleged spirit contact, with a couple of spirits that are actually quite friendly towards me.
Yeah, they like you, don't they?
Yeah.
For all your sarcasm.
I went there the first time on my own, obviously with Richard.
Yeah.
And we had an eventful time there. Then my team went and I didn't. And over the ghost box, they had a spirit that called my name in full and asked me to go back. So we was like, well, I'm going back anyway because I was local to that location anyway, so we was going to do it anyway. And then me and Richard went up to another museum, haunted museum, and we done the Ouija board there, and we actually got a spirit that asked me to go back to the HKRC, didn't we?
Yeah, that was bizarre. I mean, we basically did something. Well, I wouldn't say it was in competition, but it was another museum. But we got the alleged spirit from the previous museum. A bit of competition going on there.
Yeah,
They probably don't even see it like that. They're just like, they're contacting us going, get back to this other place where I am. Like, hello.
Yeah. And we went back, and then we found out a bit more about who it was, and every time we go there, I can literally start the board up and it will go instantly, and it'll be that one spirit.
That is quick, because I've been back again with Paul to the Haunted Antiques Research Centre, and him and Lucy were sort of saying, all come upstairs, we're going to go on the board and show you this. And yeah, the response was instant.
Yep.
Wow.
And I think it's because of the London link, because he's a London spirit, and because it's Warwickshire, there isn't many Londoners that go there.
I kind of want to burst into song at that. So do you think then the veil is thinner on Halloween? Do we get more paranormal activity on that particular night?
For me, sort of Halloween, it's the start of winter, so there is a crossover. I do certainly feel, even now, I know we're coming up to the end of the month and Halloween is going to be there. The clocks change as well. There's a few prompts and there's a few sort of things you do look forward to, and for me, yes, possibly.
See, I don't think it has much an effect. I've been on investigations and stuff on Halloween and had nothing.
Yeah.
Just as much as you would any other night, maybe. But I wouldn't say it was any more activity. You get more activity on Halloween. But, I mean, you could also say that because a lot of investigators go out at Halloween, is the veil being almost like stretched too far, so it's not working properly? Or with the built-up energy that across the world that all the investigators are doing it, is that having an effect?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but certainly, don't they say that sort of paranormal activity is more sort of prevalent during the winter months? I suppose Halloween is sort of like the jump-off point for that.
So, I've got a theory about that as well.
Go on.
I also think that during the winter months, more people are staying at home instead of going out. So they're having more time.
Haven't we all this year?
So they will experience more because they're noticing more at home.
I think the difference is, though, all right, we've stayed at home a lot more probably than we would have done normally in times where we've been bored indoors rather than busy indoors. But a lot of that has been very nice weather this year. So even though we've been home, we've been outside, we've been doing, getting on with stuff and home improvements and God knows what else. So you wouldn't necessarily notice it. I don't think Halloween, they say the veil's thinner. I think if you set out to do a ritual, there's definitely an energy difference. You can feel the energy is different. But is that because the clocks have changed and we're going into that time of year or whatever? Is it a psychological priming? We've talked about that before now. I don't know. But whenever I've done a ritual on Halloween, a specific ritual, not just a worship ritual, there's definitely been, it's definitely had a different feel to it than other times, if that makes sense. But I don't do a full-blown ritual very often. I don't often get time because I've got children. God, pesky little creatures.
Parties, you've got.
I know.
You've got your table to set up and your pumpkins to carve.
Yeah, I mean, the last, since I had the children, it's been, obviously, the focus has been on making it an occasion for them rather than doing what I do. I mean, I haven't investigated per se on Halloween. I have been out to a location that was supposed to be haunted, but it wasn't with the paranormal investigation team. We didn't have any kit. It was just sort of, let's have a mooch around and see what we can find. But there's a lot of urban legends surrounding various locations, though, with Halloween as well. Like a lot of churches, if you run around the church in a certain way, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of local urban legends come to the fore. So you do get a lot of people going out and about a lot more than you would normally. I don't think, I couldn't find any evidence either to suggest paranormal activity increases on Halloween. It happens all through the year, not especially on, it's like, hey, it's Halloween, we're all coming out to play. Do you know what I mean? And tomorrow we'll go back to bed. It's not, it doesn't seem to be that way. So I don't think it does. Excuse me.
I can't say that I've noticed.
I've not noticed that.
When I've investigated.
And sometimes I do think it is about psychological priming. You know it's Halloween. You know the veil is supposed to thin. You know, all those things that are on in your head. You know, you're after the thrill of the thrill seeking. And I don't mean that derogatory. That's not a derogatory comment at all. So we talked about this at the top of the show. It is a full moon on Saturday. Was a full moon. No, it will be. Oh, yeah. See, I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah.
I haven't got a clue. It will be a full moon. Does the full moon increase paranormal activity?
Something I've never really looked into. I know a lot of people, again, put a lot of sort of faith. When I've gone on a few websites for groups and sort of stuff like that, they will usually have a little sort of full moon calendar down in the corner, sort of stating what the atmospherics and, yeah, I know some people do put a lot into it. Whether it does or not, I don't know. I mean, you get the anecdotal stories of, you know, there's more crime committed on a full moon and stuff like that. Again, I don't know how true this is. You know, but
I do know there was a study done on A&E, and they said that more people go to A&E on a full moon than any other time, and that is scientific fact.
Right.
And I think they looked at mental institutions as well. And they always have more problems, should we say?
Yeah, well, it does. It certainly does sort of. There does seem to be a tradition of it. I mean, well, and that's where you get the word lunatic from, isn't it? So,
Okay.
But the moon.
My theory on it is it could have an effect indirectly, and what I mean by that is. Because of these studies, we know that the lunar effect is on the person to make them behave and feel different to what they normally would be, because it's all to do with water and tides and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it does have an effect on the person. Now, if a full moon has the effect that it drains you or makes you feel drained, you going into an investigation, you're going to be drained.
Yeah.
You know, so you're not going to be how you normally feel, as opposed to on another day, you'd be absolutely fine. You feel fine. You're interacting, you know, you're bubbly or whatever your personality is. So you could have had more activity because you're feeling better than if you was drained. So indirectly, I think it would have an effect.
Well, it is known the moon does have quite a powerful effect on the natural forces of the Earth, and as you sort of pointed out there, the tides is a very good point in question, and it appears, you know, the 28-day cycle and stuff like that sort of has a sort of like they think that sort of is tied in as well, you know, so that is actually known about. So, you know, can it cross over into the metaphysical? Possibly.
Studies have been done on this, and there is no verifiable evidence to suggest that the moon does actually have an effect on the human.
Yeah, I say, because plus it would.
Yeah, you know, okay, so studies have shown that, but you've got to look at the study. You know, what was their peer? Yeah. What was their target group? You've got to look deeper into that study as to where they looked for information. I do know, I've got a friend who's a teacher. She can guarantee when the full moon is, just from the way the children are acting. She says, she phones me up, she goes, full moon. Oh yeah, coming up to it. Within 2 or 3 days before and 2 or 3 days after, they're off the scale. These are little ones as well. These are little I say babies, they're not babies, but, you know, little primary schools, which I do think it evens out as they get older. But then you get into the natural physical. Every single individual has their own they call it the Cicada cycle, and everybody's one is very individual to the person. And this is where women's cycles come into it, and all sorts of things happen. But it's very personal to every individual person. Whether that then ties into the moon energy, we put a lot of, in the spiritual world, we do put a lot of stock in moon cycles. it's just a known fact. We do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's things that are more powerful. We charge crystals by the moon. We charge water and drink our moon water and, all sorts of things we do to infuse that energy of the full moon. But they do say that they think this goes back to pre-electric, basically, because the light of the moon, when we had no light pollution, the full moon would obviously cast a bigger light. You're used to sleeping in complete darkness. Then all of a sudden this full moon comes along and it actually upset your sleep patterns because it was too light.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's actually, the height of the full moon.
And it's actually become less since we had electricity and light pollution because we're more used to sleeping with some level of light now.
Yeah, I can see that. And again, that ties in the sort of like going back to medieval times and sort of 16th, 17th century. I mean, the sleep pattern for people, they would have actually 2 sleeps a night. They would go to sleep early, get up for a good couple of hours, a good 2 or 3 hours, perhaps go out, meet other people and then go back home to bed. And because, this could possibly have had something to do with the light from the moon, and stuff. But that was very common.
But there is a huge belief system, and I think you can't underestimate the belief systems that go on, can you? And then if something weird happens on that full moon, for example, or Halloween, for example, it just confirms what your belief system is. Or the veils are thin. It happened on Halloween. Do you know what I mean?
We see it every day on the socials with paranormal ghost hunters, and I'm using air quotes there, ghost hunters as well. Their belief systems come into it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they'll capture something that confirms that, so you get a confirmation bias, because that's what they want to believe, because that is what they believe. So that, we're seeing this with even mundane, everyday things. People will search out information that backs up their belief system and ignore a whole plethora of other information that denies their belief system. They want it to be this, so they'll confirm their belief by looking for information that backs it up, rather than looking at a broad spectrum.
A prime example of that was a discussion I had with someone in a group the other day that I subsequently left because I just thought I'm going to leave the idiots to it. He put a picture up of an orb.
Oh.
So I thought, okay, well, I've said to him before about orbs that, I'd sort of discount them. So I thought, I'll give him scientific evidence to prove that what he captured was scientifically explained away as the bug that it was actually. And he turned around and said, yeah, but that's just their opinion. No, mate, read it. It's scientific fact. How you can sit there and say it's an opinion...
Yeah, I mean...
deny scientific facts, that is the sort of calibre that some of those paranormal investigators are going under. And I really don't like those ones.
Well, yeah, but it's the nature. It's the nature of the beast. This does attract,
it's
confirmation
against a brick wall.
And as much as we go on about it, I mean, we are susceptible to confirmation bias as well.
Every single person is.
Every single person is. You will. There is a natural tendency to go out and seek something that will back your sort of. I mean, how many times, perhaps, Kerry, if you're sort of working on a blog or a theory and stuff, and there's just one thing, I'm not saying that you do, but then one thing can throw it, can't it?
Yeah.
You think, oh no.
And then you have to look into it deeper, and then you research that, and this is where we go down the rabbit hole, because it leads you into different areas. And then you think, challenging your belief systems isn't a bad thing, and actually being open to having your belief systems challenged, or your understanding of a topic or an area challenged, not a bad thing at all. I quite enjoy that process.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all learning together, and to have someone challenge you and you come back with a decent argument as why you think you're right and have a conversation about that, that's one thing. But to turn around and I passed on my knowledge because I knew where I could find this scientific fact, and I passed that on to him. for him to turn around with the argument, that's just their opinion. It's like, well, you really don't know what you're doing, then, do you? And I left the group. Do you know what? I'll bet you in a couple of weeks' time he'll be guest speaker at one of these Paracons, and he'll have a book out in 3 weeks because he's a paranormal expert on orbs. And he'll do really well, and that's what annoys me.
Well, you get it. I mean, but there's a market for it. Again, it's what I said before. This sort of particular area we sort of are into, study, sort of are involved in. There is a lot of, there's a lot of people that produce stuff by believers for believers. I mean, it is quite rife. And, I mean, and we might even be guilty of it at some point, I mean, I think I would like to see more people actually sort of fess up and sort of, and just accept the notion that they might be wrong. Because I've always accepted the notion that ghosts or this paranormal activity, what we believe it is, I mean, I could be wrong.
I've never said that I'm always right, or... I know that I'm right and you're wrong. At the end of the day, as I said, we're all learning, and for someone to challenge what you believe, that's how you move forward in the process, by having things challenged. I mean, we'd get nowhere. At one point, they thought the Earth was flat until it was proved not by the explorers of the time. So even the scientists are doing the same. They're wrong.
They're always challenging each other, aren't they, and pushing each other forward.
Exactly, and that's how they progress.
So quickly, last question on the table before we finish, because we've only got 5 minutes. So bear that in mind, lads, because once we get into this one, it could go on a while.
Don't ask a big question then.
I'm going to ask a big question. Have you ever come across a #demon?
Nope. Not that I would call any. No.
Not that I would call a demon, no. I had a private case. I won't mention any names or locations, but this lady, she claimed that she was attacked by spirit every night, and she had precautions like she'd wear tin foil around her middle section so the spirit couldn't get there. And she was absolutely terrified of this. She reported that she had what felt like 3 cats around her ankles all the time, and she quite easily welcomed them in. So I thought, okay, well, we'll go with that, and I'll see what I can research just based on all the information she gave me. And I actually found a Norse demon that would have 3, they called them hellhounds, but it could have been anything. And as soon as the demon would send in these hellhounds, and once they were welcomed into the home, that gave the power to the demon to come in and do what he wanted, basically, with his victim, which fit with everything she said. And then she was an elderly lady. She wasn't, you wouldn't have disbelieved her. But for her to find that, I had to dig really deep to find this information. And I actually went to a parapsychologist that I know, a psychologist in occultism, and you know him very well because he's our producer. Mm-hmm. And I actually asked him about it, and he said, yeah, we'll get I've got some Norse protection spells. Mm-hmm. So he gave me those. He told me what I needed to do with them. So I went back to the woman's house, put this protection stuff on, and they've never had a problem since. Well, I don't personally think it was a demon. I just think it's a spirit because I don't really believe in demons. But because obviously it was in Norse mythology as a demon, and they were the ones that cast it as a demon. So, yeah, that's my claim to fame on the demon front.
Hashtag it was a demon, everybody.
I beat a demon. I'm going to get a T-shirt with that.
I beat a demon. On that note, whatever you're doing on Halloween, do it safe, have fun, and just remember that this goes back a lot further than you may think. On that note, say good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
At the Halifax, we know that catching up and checking in on each other has never been more important. So when our customers couldn't come into a Halifax branch, we picked up the phone and gave them a call. In fact, this year we've made over 250,000 wellbeing calls to customers for a natter and a catch-up, just to see if they're doing okay. Halifax, it's a people thing.
We are the University of Bedfordshire, where groundbreakers take risks, where future leaders make their mark, where high flyers soar. Get the support and opportunities to achieve more, become more, defy expectations. Find out how a degree at Bedfordshire can change your life. Book now for our open day on November 21st at beds.ac.uk/defy.